I found out my parents stole my late grandmother's inheritance to fund my brother's failed startups, so I evicted them from the house they thought they owned. I have always been the practical one in my family. I am the eldest daughter, the one who didn't cause trouble, the one who made her own doctor appointments at 16, and the one who understood early on that money was a finite resource. My younger brother, however, was born with a charisma that seemed to short-circuit my parents' logic centers. He is the kind of person who smiles and the world hands him things. Or, more accurately, he smiles and my parents hand him things that belong to me. To understand why I did what I did last Saturday, you have to understand the dynamic of the last 15 years. When I was 18, I was accepted into my dream university, a prestigious school 3 states away. I had worked through high school, saving every penny from waitressing jobs, but I still needed financial help. My grandmother on my father's side had passed away 2 years prior, and it was always spoken of in hushed, reverent tones that she had left a nest egg for the grandchildren's education. I remember sitting at the kitchen table with my acceptance letter, my hands shaking with excitement, waiting for my parents to tell me how we would make it work. Instead, my father looked at the floor and my mother cried. They told me that the market had been unkind. They told me that the inheritance was gone, swallowed up by bad investments and necessary home repairs. They told me they were so sorry, but there was simply no money. They said I would have to go to the local community college and live at home to save costs. I was devastated, but I was also a dutiful daughter. I swallowed my disappointment. I told them I understood. I went to community college, I worked 2 jobs, I transferred to a state school, and I graduated with honors and 0 debt because I killed myself working to pay for it. Meanwhile, my brother, who is 3 years younger, barely graduated high school. He had passions and visions, but no work ethic. When he turned 19, he wanted to be a music producer. My parents bought him $20,000 worth of equipment. When that bored him, he wanted to flip houses. My parents co-signed a loan. When he decided he was an entrepreneur, they invested in his idea for a clothing brand that never produced a single shirt. I watched all of this from the sidelines, biting my tongue until it bled. Whenever I asked where this money was coming from, my mother would get defensive. She would say that they were leveraging their assets, and that it was different because my brother needed a leg up, whereas I was naturally self-sufficient. Fast forward to 5 years ago. My parents' financial house of cards finally collapsed. They were facing foreclosure on the family home, the house I grew up in. They were in their late 50s, terrified, and facing homelessness. By then, I was doing well. I had a stable career in corporate law. I wasn't rich, but I was liquid. They came to me begging. They didn't want to lose the house. It was their legacy, they said. So, I did what a good daughter does. I bought the house. I paid off the bank, put the deed in my name, and told my parents they could live there rent-free for as long as they needed, provided they paid for utilities and maintenance. I treated it as an investment for my future and a safety net for them. They cried. They called me their savior. For a while, things were peaceful. Then, 6 months ago, my brother moved back in. He is 30 years old now. He had just gone through a messy divorce and a bankruptcy filing because of a failed cryptocurrency venture. Naturally, he went running back to mommy and daddy. I didn't mind him staying there temporarily to get back on his feet. But then the requests started. First, it was my mother calling to ask if I could pay for the utilities, just for a few months, because my brother's presence increased the bills. I agreed. Then it was a request to build a studio in the garage so my brother could start his podcast. I refused. That caused a fight where I was called unsupportive. But the nuclear bomb dropped 2 weeks ago. My parents called a family meeting. I drove over to the house, my house, on a Sunday afternoon. My brother was sitting on the couch, looking smug, while my parents sat in armchairs looking like they were about to deliver a eulogy. My father started talking about fairness. He talked about how I was so successful, how I had my own apartment in the city, a good car, and a 401k. He talked about how my brother had struggled and had a run of bad luck. Then my mother dropped the hammer. She said, "We think it is only fair that you sign the deed of this house over to your brother. He needs security. You have so much, and he has nothing. It would give him a foundation to build his life again. We will still live here, of course, but he should be the owner on paper. It would do wonders for his self-esteem." I sat there, blinking. I thought it was a joke. I looked at my brother, who shrugged and said, "It's not like you live here, sis. You're just hoarding the equity." I stood up and walked out without saying a word. I was shaking so hard I couldn't put my key in the ignition. I went home and stewed in a rage that felt physical. But I am a lawyer. I don't act on emotion, I act on evidence. I knew my parents were terrible with money, but the audacity of asking me to give a $500,000 asset to the person who had squandered every opportunity he was ever given didn't make sense. It felt desperate. I decided to dig. Since I owned the house, I still had some old boxes of files stored in the attic that I hadn't looked at in years. I went back the next day while they were all out at lunch. My brother has expensive tastes for someone with no income, and I went into the attic. I wasn't looking for anything specific, just trying to understand their financial history to see why they were so desperate to secure an asset for him. I found an old dusty banker's box labeled "Grandmother, Estate." My heart hammered against my ribs. I opened it. Inside were bank statements from 15 years ago. I saw the deposit from my grandmother's estate. It wasn't a small amount. It was nearly $200,000. It had been deposited into a trust account with my name and my brother's name on it. Then I saw the withdrawals. The dates lined up perfectly with my life events, but in reverse. The month I was accepted to my dream university and was told there was no money, there was a withdrawal of $40,000. The memo line didn't say tuition. It said dealership, Audi. I froze. I remembered that year. My brother had turned 16. He got a brand new car. My parents had told me they leased it for cheap. They had bought it in cash with my college fund. I kept reading. A withdrawal for $25,000 the year my brother wanted to be a DJ. A withdrawal for $15,000 for a trip. Another for legal fees when my brother got a DUI. By the time I graduated college, the account was empty. They hadn't lost the money in the market. They hadn't used it for home repairs. They had drained my grandmother's legacy, money specifically left for both of us, entirely on him. And then, when they ran out of that money, they drained their own retirement to keep funding him, which is why they went broke and needed me to buy the house. I sat on the dusty floor of that attic and screamed. It was a guttural, primal sound. I wasn't just the responsible one. I was the bankroll. I was the plan B. I had spent my adult life saving them from a poverty they created by spoiling him, using money that was supposed to be mine. I didn't confront them immediately. I took the box. I took photos of every document. I went in my office and drafted a legal notice. Then I planned the reveal. My parents were hosting a welcome home barbecue for my brother that Saturday. They had invited aunts, uncles, cousins, and family friends. They wanted to reintegrate him into the family social circle and show everyone how well he was doing. They expected me to be there to play the part of the supportive sister. I showed up an hour late. The backyard was full of people eating burgers and drinking beer. My brother was holding court by the grill, telling some exaggerated story about his crypto days. My mother saw me and rushed over, looking nervous. "Did you think about what we discussed?" she whispered, squeezing my arm. "About the deed?" "I did," I said loudly. "I thought about it a lot." I walked over to the patio table where the cake was sitting. I cleared my throat. "Everyone, can I have your attention?" The chatter died down. My father smiled, raising his beer, probably thinking I was going to make a toast to my brother's resilience. "My parents asked me to do something generous this week," I began, my voice steady. "They asked me to sign over the deed to this house, which I own and pay for to my brother. They said it was only fair because I have so much and he has nothing." A murmur went through the crowd. My brother looked confused. My mother went pale. "I was considering it," I lied. "But then I wanted to look at the financials to see how we got here. And I found something interesting." I pulled the stack of photocopied bank statements from my bag. I didn't hand them out, I just held them up. "This is the record of the inheritance Grandma left for us. For years, Mom and Dad told me it was lost in the stock market crash. That's why I couldn't go to the university I got into. That's why I worked 2 jobs. But it turns out, the money wasn't lost." I looked directly at my brother. "The $40,000 for your first car? That was my tuition. The $20,000 for your music equipment? That was my down payment on a house. The $15,000 for your mental health trip to Cabo? That was my safety net." The silence in the backyard was heavy, suffocating. My mother lunged forward. "Stop it. This is not the place." I sidestepped her. "It is exactly the place. You stole $200,000 from me. You spent every dime of our grandmother's legacy on him. And when that ran out and you went broke, I bought this house to save you. And now? Now you want me to give the house to him too? You want me to sign over the only thing I have left to the person who already spent my entire inheritance? My father started shouting now, calling me ungrateful, yelling that family doesn't keep score. I am keeping score, I said. And the game is over. I pulled a manila envelope from my bag and dropped it on the table next to the potato salad. This is a 30-day notice to vacate. I am selling the house. You have 1 month to find somewhere else to live. Since my brother is the favorite, I'm sure he can figure out how to support you. After all, you invested $200,000 in him. It's time for a return on that investment. My brother charged at me, screaming that I was a selfish witch, that I was ruining their lives. My uncle, to his credit, stepped in and held him back. I didn't flinch. I turned to the guests, who were staring with their mouths open. Enjoy the barbecue, I said. It's the last one at this location. I walked out. I drove straight to a hotel because I didn't want them coming to my apartment. I blocked their numbers. That was 3 days ago. Since then, the fallout has been nuclear. My phone is filled with voicemails from blocked numbers. My aunts and cousins are divided. Half of them are horrified by what my parents did and are texting me apologies for not knowing. The other half, the ones who believe that family is family no matter what, are sending me hateful messages saying I am heartless for evicting my elderly parents and troubled brother. They tell me I can afford to keep them there. They tell me I am punishing them for past mistakes. They tell me that airing dirty laundry in public was a sin. But here is the thing, it wasn't past mistakes. It was a current, ongoing robbery. They were trying to take my house. They were trying to take the one thing I had built from the ashes of the future they stole. I spoke to a real estate agent this morning. The market is hot. The house will sell quickly. I plan to take my money, and put it into a trust that no one in my family can ever touch. I am mourning the loss of the parents I thought I had, but mostly, I am mourning the girl who believed them when they said there was no money. I feel lighter than I have in years, but I also feel incredibly alone. I know I did the right thing logically, but emotionally, I feel like I just orphaned myself. Is this what freedom feels like? Or did I just become the cold-hearted monster they always accused me of being? I don't think I'm the monster. I think I finally stopped being the victim. And if that makes me the villain in their story, then I will gladly wear the black hat, as long as I'm wearing it in a house that actually belongs to me.